لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء، والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره. ثم الصلاة والتحية والإكرام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي أرسل رحمة للعالمين، سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين.
اللهم صل على محمد.
قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويوم نبعث في كل أمة شهيدا عليهم من أنفسهم وجئنا بك شهيدا على هؤلاء ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. Surah Naml, verse number 89. The day we will call against every community a witness from their own, and we will call you to be a witness against your own people. We have revealed to you the book as an explanation of all things, a guide, a mercy, and a good news for those who fully submit. Last night, as I was trying to explain the reason for the failure of Imam Hassan and the need for truth treaty with Muawiyah, I explained and just briefly touched about the concept of power in Islam and how the use of power against tyranny and injustice right from the beginning of Islam, it was necessary. Islam pays attention to power as much as it pays attention to your food, to human food and need the daily life. When it is necessary to be used, it has to be used. Particularly when Islam made it clear that part of the ultimate goal of establishing what we call a civil society that is based on justice and follows justice and supports justice, then needed somehow the society that was corrupt to be dealt with and the powerful that existed at the time to be dealt with. The reason why the Holy Prophet wasn't able to succeed in Mecca, because that power base that needed to stay with him and work with him to eliminate the injustice within the society didn't exist. And hence, there was a need for migration to go somewhere else. Migration happened when a group of people came from Medina to Mecca and made a bay'ah with the Holy Prophet that we will stand with you no matter what. That gave the Holy Prophet the opportunity to establish the nucleus of the what we call the Islamic Ummah and gradually expanded. As the nucleus was attacked by the outsiders, by the foreign forces, had to develop an army. At the beginning, it was during Battle of Badr, a ramshackled army of 313 individuals, that they had 6 horses and 7 camels, and what we call swords that were shared between people. People will borrow a sword from somebody, go to the battle. If they survive, they come back and give it, somebody else takes it. And yet, with the dedication and the power of faith, they were able to defeat an army which was 3 times as many, fully armed up to the neck, and destroyed them. So from then it became the norm for the Muslim army to develop itself and to be able to fight. The Battle of Uhud, they lost a little bit, but the other battles, they worked hard, and finally the victory in Mecca came. So the notion of the necessity of force as a way to deal with the tyrannical rulers, oppressive rulers, that they would not hesitate to use the power that they have to kill, destroy, maim, and everything else, and torture, because they want to stay in power. The idea that we can go back home, Muawiyah is in charge, he's killing everybody, or Yazid is in charge, we go back, retreat ourselves into masjid, and late at night, oh Lord, remove Muawiyah or remove Yazid from our community. It's not going to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already said, I'm prepared to work with you so long as you work with your leaders. You can't go back to the house and then start talking about Allah. Allah is not going to interfere. And there is a verse in the Holy Quran that says, if Allah wanted to, Allah could have made a monolithic community. There is no differences between anybody, and they all believed in Allah, all submitted to Allah. That's it. There was no need for prophethood. Shaitan would have been marginalized, finished. إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. Your free will has to be used. The development within society is when we exercise the free will in the right manner. You can exercise your free will in corruption, or you can exercise your free will in submission. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you either one of them, either one of these two have consequences. And then you need to be aware of it. Either one of them. You submit or you disobey. So this issue of injustice to be removed from the community is an ultimate goal, and the society to be returned to the right balance order, to justice, was the goal of all Imams, right from Amir al-Mu'mineen and going down. The only problem was that when Amir al-Mu'mineen couldn't get enough people to support him immediately after Saqifa, had to accept that there is no other way out but to be marginalized. For 25 years, sat inside the house and dealt with what we call intellectual academic issues. Not because he didn't want to change Omar and Abu Bakr and Uthman and anybody else. He would have been delighted if he could muster enough people around him to topple them and start going back to the ideal society that the Holy Prophet was talking about in Ghadir Qum. Everyone even put Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha on the back of a mule and moved from house to house in Medina, reminding them that you had a responsibility. You swore allegiance to me as the next successor to the Holy Prophet in Yawm al-Ghadir. Sorry, Maulana, or sorry, Ali ibn Abi Talib, we want to live. We are tired. That's what we do these days. The creature comfort takes over. We are not prepared to be challenged in our societies. This is why we're always in the margin of society. Imam Hassan did the same thing. It's not because they really didn't want to change. They wanted to change. The fact that Imam Hassan, after the swearing of allegiance to him, immediately organizes an army of around 30, 40, or 50,000 and says, Muawiyah has to be removed. It's an indication that the priority on his list is to return the society back to its justice. But what happened? When the leader of his battalion, his cousin, moves to Muawiyah for a bag full of money, the tribal leaders around, they say in Kufa, Muawiyah sends them money and they said, if Hassan comes to Kufa, we will capture him and send him back to you. And these letters were signed by tribal leaders, and Muawiyah, clever enough, sent these letters to Imam Hassan and said, look, these are the people that you want to rely on and fight me. If Khawarij within Kufa, they get into the tent of Imam Hassan and they use a dagger trying to kill him, that he moves from Sabat, go to Madain to be treated. Over there, calls again, Ayyuhan nas, I am the true leader. I have been appointed by Allah, and Muawiyah is the curse that we really need to eradicate. Are you ready to support? No, Yabna Rasulullah, we want to live. What can you do? Another strategy based on the issue of power, use of power, was used by Imam Hussein. But by the martyrdom of Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, 61 after Hijrah, it became clear that the notion of using power against the corrupt regimes, starting from Saqifa up to Yazid, it's not going to work because there are no political bases that are ready to stand by the Imam. So the strategy had to change. And this is a critical issue that we have to bear in mind, whether we analyze the life of Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin. Why did there were a number of uprisings during the life of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, Zayd and others. And Imam says, while I agree with the goal and objective of the uprising, I'm not supporting it physically. Why? Because he knew that those who are around these individuals, primarily emotional individuals, that reactionary to some events, but when the going gets tough, they drop the flag and disappear, as it happened. All Awlad al-Hassan, the descendant of Imam Hassan, as well as other Imams that rose during either late Bani Umayyah or Bani al-Abbas, they didn't achieve anything. They either killed, had to run away. Some of them was with Kufa, other was with other people. Because people were not prepared to stand up to the fact that it is their Islamic duty to defend justice and stand up against injustice. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to move into a theme as we are approaching the Layal al-Qadr and the Nights of Power. It's necessary to talk a little bit about the Holy Quran. Although we touched upon it few nights ago, about a week ago, when the issue of desertion in the Holy Quran and leaving the Holy Quran or not acting upon the Holy Quran, I mentioned it at that time. So some of these ideas might be repetition. For us Muslims, we consider the Holy Quran as the most sacred book that one could imagine. Literally, it's considered to be the word of God, which was revealed during 23 years of the prophethood of the Holy Prophet by Jibreel. During his mission, Jibreel revealed this book to him. The revelation took place on different occasions during night, day, Mecca, Medina. And this is why if you open the Holy Quran, the beginning of each surah, it would tell you whether this is a Makki surah or a Madani surah. Some of the Makki surahs have few passages from Medina to complete them, and some Madani surahs, they have few verses from the Makki surahs that the Holy Prophet identified this is where they have to be put. Everything that we consider that to do with this book is considered to be sacred. The word, the sound, the recitation, as well as the surface of the book pages, is considered to be sacred, and we cannot touch them when we are not clean. After each revelation, the Holy Prophet commanded a number of scribes, writers, kutab, that they will come and sit down and listen to him. He recited to them orally, and they wrote this down, because he knew if you don't protect the text and save it in a written form, there's always the possibility of misplacement, lack of memory, etc., etc. And by the end of his life, these verses and chapters were compiled into a complete book that we have today. We don't believe any of that book to have been corrupted or modified or chapters eaten by goats or anything else. That's not part of our belief. The book itself has a number of fundamental issues that addresses and a number of secondary issues. The fundamental issues naturally is Tawheed, number one, the belief in the oneness of Allah in the absolute sense. And once you're going to talk about Allah, Allah's attributes, Allah's name, and the relationship between name and the reality of Allah and essence of Allah, these are something that's discussed in the book. The second one is Nubuwwah, prophethood. And when you talk about Nubuwwah and prophethood, naturally you have to talk about the life of other prophets before, since at the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, the verse clearly states that Quran and Islam believes in the previous revelation, and it sees itself completing and complementing whatever revelation that came before. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من قبل. So that is a clear understanding. Naturally, then we have to go into the name of the prophet, few of them, not all of them. We believe that technically, according to tradition, 124,000 prophets have come from beginning of Adam until the end of prophethood, but Quran mentions only few, probably 28 or 29 names mentioned in various chapters of the Holy Quran. Out of these names, certainly 5 of them are considered to be Ulul Azm, the major prophets, which is Prophet Nuh, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Musa, Prophet Isa, and the Holy Prophet. And the major, they are considered to be major because they brought a book, and their mission was taught by other minor prophets for many times after their departure until the next prophet came. Also, Quran talks about human being creation, how humans were created, and why we are created, what is our goal in life, and many more ideas about this. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Ibadah means to submit. So the ultimate goal of human life is to submit to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the absolute sense. This is why now this submission, if it is marred or mixed with some kind of riyah and so on, becomes shirk khafi, the hidden shirk or zahir shirk, etc., etc. According to the ahadith, as well as verses in the Holy Quran, Quran possesses an outward reality and also an inward reality, zahir and batin. And there is a hadith that I'm going just to touch upon it from the Holy Prophet, that Marhum Allama Tabatabai, in the beginning of his, I think, the introduction to Al-Mizan, you can go online, alislam.org, and see it. The book itself is available over there. The first volume, if you go and read it, then he recites this, mentions this hadith, that the Holy Prophet says there are many layers of knowledge and information hidden within the verses of the Holy Quran. For some that they don't possess the capacity to understand and comprehend the true Quran, they rely on the surface. But then there is a batin, the inner meaning, and the batin has another batin to it, and so on, 7 times or 70 times according to these hadith. So naturally, Ahlul Bayt by default become the only people that by the command of Allah and the blessing of Allah, they have granted this knowledge of being able to understand Quran. If you look at the story of Abu Hanifa going to Medina and meeting Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq asked Abu Hanifa, Ya Shaykh, I have heard that you sit in Masjid al-Kufa and you give fatwa. He said, yes. On what basis do you rest your fatwa? He said, on the book of Allah. And you claim that you know the book of Allah? He said, yes. Tell me. And then Imam goes into 3 or 4 verses of the Holy Quran. What are these meanings? How do you define them? And ultimately, he has no answer. And Imam says that the only people that truly have the ability to understand Quran, comprehend it, analyze it, and be able to explain it is Ahlul Bayt. Nobody else. Even if you struggle for the rest of your life, you will not be able to scratch the surface of the verses in the Holy Quran. So according to this, ultimately we have to go to Ahlul Bayt to get the meaning of Quran. But let's look at the Holy Quran, the way it introduces itself in various. I just selected few of the verses. Quran introduces itself as a guide for human and a clear evidence, a guide to that which is most upright, a book sent down to take people from the darkness to the light, a truth to be used to judge between haqq and batil, a book full of blessing to meditate on it, on the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are various verses that are available in the Quran, the way Quran introduces itself. If we go to a hadith, a few hadith from Ahlul Bayt, it says the same thing, underscores the same thing. This hadith from the Holy Prophet: when mischief come to you like the segment of darkness, darkened night, then hold fast to the Holy Quran. Quran is a credible advocate. If you keep it in front of you and you follow its command, it will take you to the garden of heaven. But if you go in front of it and you throw it in the back, it will drive you to hell. It has boundaries, and the boundaries have more boundaries, and the boundaries have more boundaries, which is the meaning of batin in the verses of the Holy Quran. Unfortunately, these days, a number of people, particularly the Ismailis, the Agha Khanis, they claim that they know the batin better than anybody else. And all of the tafsir that they have, they go, this is batin. And it far exceeds anything that Ahlul Bayt they have said in it. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam says the same thing. Quran is a light whose radiance shall not extinguish, and a lamp whose flame shall not die. The foundation, the fountainhead of knowledge, a power base for those who approach it. And we have a number of other hadith regarding the Holy Quran, particularly when it comes, some of them I have mentioned before, that Quran is not just a book of recitation. Quran is a book of action. Which means what? We have to structure our life according to the diktat and the direction of the Holy directive of the Holy Quran that teaches us how to behave. Because at the end of the day, Quran is the foundation of our moral principles, theological, political, and everything else. We have to go back to the Holy Quran. This has left us with a dilemma. Quran, the verse that I started at the beginning, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرَى لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. تبيانا لكل شيء, clarification of everything. Now, if Quran is clarification of everything, Quran has 114 chapters, probably about 6,680 verses, a little bit more or a little bit less. I don't remember exactly, but around that number. How comes Quran claim universality from the moment of revelation until the end of time with such a small number of pages? Unless Quran is asking us, with the help of those that they have the knowledge, to use our intellectual, spiritual, and as well as moral principles to investigate, reflect, and bring the meaning of the verses out. When Quran claims that it is universal and eternal, so this issue of being universal by default says that it is capable of answering things as time goes on. There is no time limit. So how do I bring Quran into a complex lifestyle that we are in? We need to understand the verses of the Holy Quran, and we need to use our moral, intellectual, as well as the spiritual values in the complex issues that are generated today, and then refer to the Holy Quran, not separate, not our own opinion of the Quran, but going back to Ahlul Bayt and see the guidelines that they have provided for us. If we were to do this, then we are able to find out within the Quran The answer that on the one hand, تبيانا لكل شيء, that it is an explanation and clarification of everything, and at the same time, we bring that clarification to our contemporary life. Somebody said, Mulana, you say that this is a Quran provides. Where is in the Quran that talks about Trump coming to power? Now, how do you answer this person? Quran may not tell you about Trump coming to power, but Quran would tell you how to stand up to injustice so that pharaohs unlike pharaohs, Yazid unlike Yazid, will not come to power. We expect all nitty-gritty part to be explained, all the micro issues to be discussed. Otherwise, the issue of Tibyan and the Kulli Shay is not there. This discussion, how do we deal with the Quran in a more complex and dynamic manner to be able to answer our lifestyle complexities of life, leads us to another question. Who has the authority to do tafsir and exegesis as well as the interpretation of the Holy Quran? Does anyone have it? Or there are few people? We have thousands of tafsirs right from the beginning of after the demise of the Holy Prophet up to now, both within the Sunni and the Shia community. All of these are valid. There are few tafsirs. Inshallah, this is what I will use it as a theme for my discussion tomorrow night and wrap it up, inshallah, tomorrow. There are few tafsirs that purely rests on the issue of the wording, literature, and as well as what we call the linguistic part. From Arabic point of view, this word is this, the root is that, and so on. There are those who are what I call polemical. They interpreted the Quran after they had defined their position vis-a-vis the first three Khalif. Now I need to use the Quran to justify what they did, as we see it these days. Trump says people of Gaza has to come out and turn it into some Riviera that I will develop. Then the Saudi Imam stands up and says, yes, he's right. People of Gaza, they don't need to stay in Gaza because their objective, their goal is to submit to the command of Allah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, means to submit, and they can submit to the command of Allah anywhere on earth. So there are a number of interpretations in this classification. Ayatollah Khoy, in his just one volume that he has, Al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran, it's a very detailed book as an introduction. He never was able to finish it, and it's on the line in alislam.org. He talks about these issues, various types of interpretation. One of them is al-tafsir bil-ra'i, according to my opinion, my understanding. If my understanding is shallow, then my interpretation is going to be shallow. At-tafsir bil-ra'i, and the Holy Prophet has rejected this concept, that those people who interpret tafsir according to their own notion, ultimately they will have the punishment on the day of judgment. So this is a critical issue that inshallah we will talk about it tomorrow night and wrap this issue up. Then we go towards Layal al-Qadr, because Layal al-Qadr has its own value. What does it mean? And naturally lead to other issues. Whether we want it or we didn't want, we have reached literally a threshold. 20 days gone, almost. And we are close to the last third of the month of Ramadan. And always we have a hadith, and if you go to Sahif al-Sajjadiyya, Imam Zain al-Abidin, how he weeps during the last 10 days, as if he has lost a son or a loved one. That now, as we draw to the end, the blessing is coming to an end, and we don't know whether we benefited from it. I have, at the end of every lecture, I've asked, please remember that these opportunities may never come again. So let's benefit from it and spend some time on reflection, contemplation, self-criticism, and understanding what have we done and particularly on Tawbah and staying away from sinfulness, which is so critical during the month of Ramadan. Inshallah, we ask Allah to grant us such a privilege and help us out. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. Oh Lord, don't punish us if we have committed mistakes or we have gone astray. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
اللهم صل على محمد